Hello everyone. I'm going to start by saying this probably is going to be a little different from what you've heard in the past, but I'm going to try and explain the second coming of Christ to the best of my ability. Now, many traditions have at their root the misunderstanding which takes parables literally. And I can explain this later, but for the time being I'll explain the correct way that I understand this. Now Jesus said in Matthew 16:28 to people in approximately AD 33 or thereabouts that some of you standing here will not see death, or will not taste death until they see the Son of Man coming. Now this is a promise, and there are only a few ways in which this can be fulfilled. The first, of course, is what the popular doctrinal statements are, which state that everyone will be resurrected at the same time and we will all see Christ coming at that point in time. The second would be if Christ came back when this happened, particularly in this case it would be around AD 33, or as some denominational bents have it, AD 70. Now there is another way that this can happen, and it's the way that I choose to understand it, and I think the Bible states it this way, that Jesus comes to each individual. Now many denominations, in fact most denominations, state in their doctrinal statements that they regard the relationship between the individual and Jesus as being the one that is aspired to and dictated to us by the Bible. At the same time, these same denominations deny this as it regards the second coming of Christ. They say that the second coming is a corporate event. As I explained previously, they say that every generation will see him coming at one point in time. I think it's different, and I'll go into a few of the reasons. The Apostle Peter preached in Acts 3:19 through 21 that when a person repents, Jesus is sent to them by the Father. Now, keep in mind, he's sent from heaven to earth by the Father. Now, earlier in the chapter, or earlier, I guess, in the account, we have Jesus being crucified and dying and going to heaven. And now here again, in fulfillment of the biblical mandate, we have Jesus returning from heaven to man. Only this time he comes to the individual when they repent. Now this is borne out also in John 14:23, where Jesus said, "If you love me and keep my words," which means believe, just as Acts 3:19 through 21 states, "If you believe, my Father will love you, and we will come to you, both of them, the Father and the Son, and make our abode with him." Now that, of course, is a spiritual coming. It's a spiritual presence, but it is the Bible. And the Bible has a set amount of books to it. We don't add to it, we don't take it away. We have to work with what it gives us. Now in Hebrews 9:28 we're told that Jesus comes for only two reasons: to die on the cross, number one, and for salvation, number two. Now when that was written, number one, to die on the cross, the first coming had already happened. The second coming, according to what I've just explained, happens when an individual repents and Jesus comes into their life to aid them or help them in their salvation. Now we're being saved from God's wrath. That's the scriptural definition of salvation. We have to be saved from something, and what we are saved from is the wrath of God which is visited against sin. People asked John the Baptist, or they went to John the Baptist, the Pharisees did, and John said to them, these were unbelievers, and he said to them, who warned you to flee from the wrath to come? God's wrath is visited against ungodliness. Now, after the initial coming of Christ, there are points of judgment or points of evaluation for his people. The end result, of course, is Christ-likeness or being conformed to the image of Christ. But along the way, 1 Corinthians 11:32 says, when we're judged so we won't be condemned with the world. And that necessitates more than one instance of judgment or evaluation. We don't simply become godly after one period of judgment. It does take a lifetime. So salvation is a process. Being saved is a process. Now, Jesus said, if you lose your life for my sake, you'll gain it. But if you don't lose it, you will lose it entirely. Specifically meaning existence. So I want to introduce this, let people know that the second coming is not what mainline denominational people understand it to be, not because they've been intentionally deceiving or deceptive, but because interpreting a parable is incorrect unless you have the basic statements, the simple statements, the clear statements understood first. And only when you incorporate the clear statements into the parable understanding, can you understand the parable. It's a case of having the cart before the horse. Now, a parable is to allow certain people to understand. Matthew 13, when Jesus told his disciples why he spoke in parables, he said so that some will understand and some won't. So by design, a parable is designed to keep certain people from understanding, specifically unbelievers, while at the same time allowing believers who understand the truth spoken of to understand the true meaning of the parable. This is what is called, this phenomenon of being able to speak of the mysteries of God, is as is spoken of in Acts 1 regarding the mysteries of God. This is called speaking in tongues. Now, this is going to affect a lot of people who have believed differently for many, many years, and I was one of them. But at the same time, God has showed me things in ways that I was mistaken in the past. And since we are being taught good from evil, we have to understand that we are going to be mistaken in some areas. I think I've laid it all out for you. I pray that God will open your understanding to see what I've been speaking about. Thank you.